recording with the one and only Dr. Peter McCullough live on the show on Wednesday, February 22nd, 6 p.m. Eastern time. And Dr. McCullough, you just got back from Australia because you were a globe-trotting superstar, and I live vicariously through you. Can you give me an update on what's going on there?
Tommy just returned from a great trip. Before we get going, I need you to kind of reveal something to me. Am I the most frequent invited guest on the TPC podcast?
Yeah.
Am
Yeah.
I? Am I number one?
No, of total appearances,
Yes.
you might be beaten out by my buddy Dale, who's in Delta Force. We did a lot early on. He came on
I
like,
got beat out by Dale.
well,
Oh man.
everyone. Well, most people don't get beat out by Dale; they get killed by Dale. So I guess that's a good
Okay.
thing.
I
I
guess I
guess
should
that's a
feel
good
lucky.
thing.
I
But
should feel
no,
lucky.
you are aggregate views. You're the most viewed You're the most viewed guest, far and away. You've got
There
it
we
all. No,
go.
no, yeah, no. You are. I have a diversified portfolio, but you are certainly the heavy hitter.
Well, you've done a great job through the
Thank you, sir.
pandemic. I think your attention to history, your attention to some of the wider changes that we're seeing in groupthink are very important. And so, yeah, I have not traveled much in the last 3 years. I used to travel. I could travel up to 10 international trips a year in academic medicine. I was, a frequent lecturer at medical schools and health agencies all over the world prior to COVID. And then COVID hit, almost nothing for 3 years. In really no major travel across the ocean. But I was invited to a conference in Delhi, India, and it was hosted at an international conference center there. And I headlined programs there with Aseem Malhotra, lead cardiologist from the UK, and a very important barrister or a lawyer in India. His name is Prashant Bhushan, who's a very humble man. He's actually the focus of one of our Substacks published today by John Leake. And Prashant Bhushan took a case to the Supreme Court pretty early in the vaccine program. And he made the case that there were three things that, on behalf of the public that they wanted. They wanted the data about clinical trials of the vaccines in Indians that were tested among the Indian population. They wanted the vaccines to be removed from. They wanted the vaccine mandates to be dropped, and they wanted the vaccines to be removed from the market. They wanted this clean sweep, and they got one out of the three. But the one they got was to drop all the vaccine mandates. And the argument that was made successfully is that someone who took a vaccine is indistinguishable from someone who did not take a vaccine. And they were able to prove that, and that stood the test of time in the Supreme Court of India. And so, the Indians have not been under any forms of mandates. They had a restriction of children not going to school all the way till April of 2022, which is pretty amazing. The rest of the place looks like the good old dusty, noisy India that I know from old. Cars all over the place, people all over the place. Just the incredible diversity of people there. They were wonderful. Just to give you some color on this, Tommy, I presented this conference. I had a sport coat and tie, kind of the usual Dr. McCullough usual. There was an Indian woman in the traditional Indian garb. There was some other guy who showed up in shorts and a soccer shirt and some sandals. And before you know it, he was walking around in bare feet. He was just all different types of. The other thing that I said is I had intimated that I thought maybe most people in the crowd had taken the vaccine, and they went nuts. But 90% of people in the crowd said, we did not take this vaccine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 90%. And then someone else kind of let out at one of the breaks that his estimate was that 30% of Indians had fake vaccine cards.
That's awesome.
So that was India. And so we were just there a few days. We didn't get sick. We were pretty careful. And we had put out a communique to Prime Minister Modi that we'd be happy to meet with him I had previously met with his doctor last time I was in India as a guest lecturer, but didn't work out. But we got messages at least through to Modi. And then Asim Malhotra, who's with us, who actually gave a great speech at the conference. He went on to a second conference in Mumbai. And then I loaded up on my way to Australia. And I had greater anxieties about going to the land down under than I did India.
Just because of the Orwellian crackdown they've had?
Just really an extraordinary time. India is a country of 1.3 billion people and an interesting continent. The continent itself is a peninsula. And one of the questions that was answered that John Leake asked, he said, how can a place like India of its size contain such a huge population? And you know what the answer was? You'd be fascinated. The answer was because every bit of ground in India can produce food.
Oh.
I said, I've never thought about that. There's no deserts. There's really no, area of land that couldn't be properly utilized to generate food. So they can generate a ton of food. They're actually food self-sufficient in India. Learn that as well. Now, moving on to Australia. Australia as a continent is big. You can almost lay it down right inside the borders of the United States. But Australia, 26 million people. In the state of Texas, we're 29 million. So I had used the Texas-Australia analogy saying, listen, it's the same virus, the same susceptible population. In fact, Texas probably more susceptible populations because we know Blacks and Hispanics historically have just far worse outcomes with COVID than Caucasians. They also have multi-generational households. We actually have deeper pockets of poverty in the United States than Australia does. But the ways that the countries handle this was completely different. In the United States, in many ways, we just kind of let it happen. In Texas, we had closed some restaurants and some public venues for a period of time. The Dallas Independent School District was closed for a year. Parochial schools stayed open. But I can tell you for 2022 and 2023 now, Texas you can't tell that there's any problem here. The restaurants are full, people are outside and jogging, and the planes are packed. Dallas is the headquarters for both American and Southwest Airlines, so we're kind of a big air aviation hub, and everything's been business as usual for a long time. Our hospitals have not been overloaded with COVID. In fact, we never were overloaded in Dallas, and I believe Collin County. The criterion for being overloaded was more than 15% of the hospital beds full of COVID patients. We never got there because the hospitals were able to increase capacity. We had enough doctors doing early treatment, keeping people out of the hospital. So the analogy is, listen, in Texas, we kind of got through it. We've got a big economy. I'm sure our economy is probably bigger than that of Australia. Australia is so different, Tommy. The lead cities are Melbourne and Sydney, but they've got also wonderful Canberra, the capital, Brisbane, and then there's the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast, and Adelaide down south, and certainly Perth out west. They have a distributed population. They have very clean cities. I mean, I didn't see any poverty at all. I doubt they have some, maybe in the interior there in Alice Springs, but their response was completely different. They had draconian, brutal lockdowns. People couldn't leave their house, shut down schools and businesses completely. Someone sick with COVID, they put a 5-kilometer perimeter. They really couldn't, navigate beyond a perimeter. They could not travel between states. That would be like us not driving between Oklahoma and Texas. Like, why would that matter? You couldn't drive between states for a really long period of time. You certainly couldn't fly between states. In effect, their policy was no jab, no job.
And they had the camps, right?
We're told they had 12 camps. I never got a straight story on what was going on with these camps, but boy, they sounded awful. They put a lot of laws on the books that were pretty serious. We're talking about taking people to prison. One could not, quote, speak out against the narrative. They've decertified many doctors for either trying to treat COVID patients or give public COVID information. And they have a very authoritarian regulatory agency called the TGA, Therapeutic Goods Administration. And it's led by someone named John Scarrett. And this was really the theme of our mission. So when we go to Australia, and I was a visiting professor there a few years ago, I already had a visa. I was already good. My wife got a visa fine. In our entourage was John Leake, my co-author for Courage to Face COVID-19. John got a visa fine. But Pierre Corey, well-known early treatment doctor, no visa, no visa, no visa.
Wow.
It took a parliamentary action just before midnight of the day of his travel to grant his visa. He had to get his tickets within like 6 hours to get in. And Corey and I and my entourage are going to land the same day. And sure enough, they flag both Corey and myself. When I try to use my passport and the little electronic thing to go with my wife, and John scoot right in, and I got flagged. And we both got pulled over separately and said, listen, you're on inappropriate visas. You should be on business visas, as if they knew everything I was going there for. I said, come on, I'm not being paid. I'm attending conferences. That's within the realm of the visa. So they kind of shook me down to see if I was going to flinch. And then I was able to kind of talk my way in, and supervisors, you're called over to some side room. You feel like they're going to give you some body blows or something, behind the wall. And Corey did the same thing. So we were delayed, but we did get in. But starting at airport immigration, they knew Americans were coming. They had not had anybody deliver them a message about what was going on in the pandemic. So we were guests of one of their most famed billionaires, Clive Palmer. And Clive Palmer is a larger than life, completely self-made billionaire. Self-made. He owns mines of various mineral and iron and coal deposits that are vast. And he owns them throughout Southeast Asia, Australia, land rights. He's had many businesses, and he's worth probably 20 times that of Trump. I mean, he's really a big guy. He's been a member of parliament. He started his own party. He's put money behind candidates. He believes in medical freedom. He was hospitalized for COVID. He wanted to get treatment outside the hospital, and he forced that, made it happen. So this guy is the real deal. He wanted to meet us, and boy, was it wonderful. We flew around mainly the country in what's called the Global Express. We called it the Global X, probably the world's leading private airplane. And we're talking perfect. This thing didn't even have a single rumble, not a single little bit of turbulence. Wonderful staff serving you anything you want to serve, couches. I mean, just as luxurious as you can imagine. In fact, I did my interview for the McCullough report on the Global X, and it was quiet enough and smooth enough that the interview came out okay. And then in between other venues, we flew by helicopter. First time I've flown in a helicopter, which is pretty neat. He owns houses everywhere, guest houses. He has staff helping us. He took us on his yacht, Tommy. His yacht in the harbor there, Brisbane, in 2013 was voted the #1 luxury boat craft in the world.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, #1. I mean, it's as good as you can get. In fact, his boat, as we speak, I think is going to be chugging on the way, or later on, it's going to be chugging on the way over to Monaco. And he'll be over there for various festivities. I think one of his kids is going to get married over there. But Clive Palmer, larger than life, very good guy, wanted to meet us, get to know us. He was a wonderful host, great staff. And then we sit in on the business at hand, which was very large public programs. Our programs, you'll see them on my Twitter feed, were thousands of people. We're talking major venues. I felt like a rock star, Tommy. I felt like I should have an electric guitar, but instead I just had my laptop computer with some COVID data. I mean, this was amazing. All these folks wanted to have pictures, all these wonderful girls. There was one event, I think I took 400 pictures. And they just wanted to associate with a doctor who seemed reasonable. And when I tried to explain this to Palmer at the first event, I said, listen, these girls are going to want to get pictures. And he's like, He goes, I don't want to have any security problems. Somebody could, and he gave me this big, long explanation. And I said, well, you'll see. And sure enough, by one of the intermissions, it was just a massive crowd. And we just figured, listen, we're going to do what we always do, take pictures. People like to take pictures. But we had a great time. Our programs were led in, the lead speaker was a woman who I interviewed for my podcast. In fact, it's up on the Apple iHeart network right now. Her name is Melissa McCann. Probably should have her on, Tommy. She's wonderful, very attractive, younger doctor, kind of that Irish Australian descent, probably a distant relative of mine. And she's a general practitioner. And she did a practice audit after the vaccines came out. And she said, listen, this doesn't look good. I'm having people with vaccine injuries. So she wrote John Scarrett at the TGA. So I did a practice audit. That's what I found. And then she started looking at other vignettes reported in their system. And she starts a dialogue with Scarrett. And he starts writing letters back. And the most interesting thing is they get to the point where Scarrett admits the vaccines are causing fatal myocarditis. And in the letters, he admits that he doesn't want to release this to the public. He wants to conceal fatal myocarditis from the public because he doesn't want to have any vaccine hesitancy. He wants more people to take vaccines. So she has this all in a series of letters, which she is showing on the screen, and the crowd is gasping that this is going on. And then Pierre Corey and John Leake, and then myself, we give our presentations. And so Australians now are fully informed of what's going on. We went on after these programs. We went to Parliament House in Canberra. And there we met a woman who had taken a vaccine, and now she's suffered a severe neurologic injury. She has a tremor. She can't walk. She can't speak normally. She has this illness of which she's had, MRI scans and everything else. And she's left with no other diagnosis outside the vaccine. It really happened. She did well on shot 1 and 2, but it was shot 3 because they have to keep taking them there. They can't stop. Shot 3, she developed myopericarditis and then this neurologic syndrome. The neurologic syndrome looks to me like multiple sclerosis, although she doesn't have the characteristic enhancing plaques on MRI that a typical patient would. But she was there at Parliament House. We had a reception. And then we found the cadre of key people who understand that vaccines are a problem, including their parliament is organized to an upper house and lower house. The upper house, they are called senators. The lower house, they're just called members of parliament, but they're all members of parliament. But it included Gerard Rennick, Malcolm Roberts, Broadbent, and just a few, Babbitt, and a few more of these senators, just like in the United States, just a handful who really understand what's going on. And they're doing everything they can. They have a new prime minister now, Albanese, to try to slow down or reverse this vaccine freight train. And their numbers are 95% of people took the vaccine, Tommy, initially, and currently 25% are keeping up with boosters. By the way, in the United States, you know what our CDC says for adults now, Tommy? I just checked the website today. CDC says 92% of Americans have taken at least one shot, and that 19% are keeping up on the boosters. 19%. This adult data. That's what CDC says. Let me just verify that. So at least one dose, age over 18. Yeah, CDC says 92%. And then taken a bivalent booster, that would be updated, age over 18, 19.3%. So, whether it's Australia or the United States, people were compliant. It was a needle in every arm and people did it.
It's wild. And I just finished Dr. Bregan's book, Global Predators, which you've mentioned so many times on the show. I finally finished it. And that is an utterly terrifying book. And there is no deeper dive on just how well coordinated, orchestrated, and executed this entire thing has been. And Dr. Bregan and I spoke earlier today on a podcast, and it was It was a little bleak, but you kind of seem to be emitting light and love. So is there what's the silver lining in this? Are the restrictions receding? Are people in positions of power pushing back more? Is the grand evil plan maybe not as impenetrable as we thought?
It seems like Star Wars. There is the Empire, and they're big. They've got the Death Stars. They've got all the cruisers, the fighters. They all wear the same uniform. They have the same evil accents. And then there's this ragtag team of Rebel, the Rebel Alliance. We met the Rebel Alliance in Australia. You're part of the Rebel Alliance in the United States. We're just, we don't wear the same uniforms. Some of us look like we're different creatures from another planet. It just seems like Star Wars here. It really does. And who's fighting for good, who's fighting for evil, or who's a part of this evil, plan going on. But I think that the beacons of freedom are emitting light. People are receiving the light, and hopefully more of it will sink in. I had a conversation today. It has to remain anonymous, but a source within the National Football League. And what he told me is that players, teams, administrations are afraid to talk about the vaccine. They're afraid to talk about it, meaning you couldn't have a conversation one way or the other. And I said, listen, these are some of the biggest, strongest, violent men, and they're almost like they're whimpering mice right now. I mean, I used a more severe term, but I said, really? I mean, I feel like I could walk into an NFL locker room and just push these guys over with my little pinky finger. I mean, are they really that weak? They don't have any courage to even talk about this as an issue. What are they afraid of? Well, he just couldn't explain that there's this cloud of fear, that there's fearfulness out there. It's very interesting.
And isn't there an NFL association now urging players to do cardiac screens for vaccine injury? Isn't that coming out in the last couple of days?
Well, I mean, doctors are encouraging the NFL Players Association to screen for myocarditis, heart inflammation. And the doctors are encouraging the Players Association. Remember, the NFL ran mandates from from August of 2021 to March of 2022. They only ran the mandates for about 8 months, and they claim 95% of the players got vaccinated. Sounds pretty similar now to the US population. 92% got vaccinated. And then they dropped them. They just dropped everything as if COVID didn't exist. They dropped all the testing protocols. They dropped all the vaccines. It was almost like, okay, we achieved our goal. We got the vaccines and COVID doesn't exist anymore. It was so interesting. To my knowledge, there weren't any COVID hospitalizations or deaths in the football players. And I'm not surprised because they're so fit and strong. That's to my knowledge. But now people are encouraging the Player Association. Why is that? Because Damar Hamlin is an example of what can happen, we believe. You probably saw his interview with Michael Strahan, where Strahan finally asked him, hey, what caused the cardiac arrest? And Hamlin goes, I don't want to go there.
Oh,
well, listen, if he had a heart valve problem or his heart was thick or something like this, he'd just say, listen, they found a heart problem. I mean, what's the only two things that could make Hamlin say, I don't want to go there would be drug abuse, that he did drug abuse and he violated team rules and, snorted some cocaine or something before the game, or the COVID-19 vaccine. Those would be the two things where he would say, I don't want to go there.
Both drugs from different cartels. That's terrifying. And to kind of pivot from there, what is going on right now? And today is February 22nd for all future listeners. What is going on right now with the UN and the WHO and giving away like national sovereignty in case of another pandemic?
The UN and the WHO, and then this what John Leake and I call the biopharmaceutical complex. This this organized syndicate, World Economic Forum, Gates Foundation, Wellcome Trust, Rockefeller Foundation, Gavi, Unitate, UNICEF. It just keeps going and going. The WHO is back at it again. Remember, WHO has currently declared that we're still under a SARS-CoV-2 and monkeypox worldwide emergencies. Worldwide, they're still active. Now, honestly, I haven't heard somebody express a single bit of concern regarding monkeypox for a very long time. I don't think most people would even know we're under a monkeypox worldwide emergency declared, let alone a U.S. declared monkeypox emergency. But what the WHO is after is they're after what they wanted to go after about a year ago, and that is they want worldwide authority to declare emergencies and then to start taking action. So this is a lot different. Remember, WHO always used to, provide data, analytics, in vitro diagnostics, consensus conferences. They never actually had operational control over anything. They want operational control over things worldwide. That would actually, be subject to international law. And the Biden administration wanted to give them all of that about 9 months ago, and people pushed back. What kept it from being ratified? Remember, the WHO rolls up 193 countries. What stopped it was Africa, just kind of below that, the middle part of Africa, including the Ivory Coast and countries in and around there. They didn't want to do it. And they said, listen, we don't have a trust for the WHO. And so they're the ones who stopped it. It wasn't Canada or United States or anywhere else. But the WHO is at it again. And I hope people can realize that all healthcare should be local. It should be administered local. The WHO can't possibly know what the best thing to do in Dallas, Texas is. And they can't possibly know what the best thing to do is in the Ivory Coast. That they've overstepped their bounds, but they still are going for the power grab of all time.
It's again, and this is just the method of attack they're using. It's not that they actually, not that anyone actually believes it. They don't care about the health. This is just the method of attack, and it's the best form of attack. It's for your health, right? We learned thousands of years ago to stop just barging into towns and burning them. You gotta throw up a false excuse. So with that, then, is it going to continue here? And it, again, reading Global Predators, you see in hindsight, you just see all of the little pieces of almost these like gleeful statements in the years leading up, like, if there were to be a pandemic and we need to be prepared and there will be misinformation, and then getting really weird into, it will be a respiratory virus, it will be SARS-CoV, it will be, you go into this and you see all the powers lining up and all the money lining up and all of the edicts and the executive orders, they're placed neatly on the shelf just in case something happens. And then COVID happens. And what they predicted is exactly what came to pass. And now we are in the waters of speculation, but they're going to do it again, right? They're not just going for WHO control over sovereign nations just for fun. They're going to do it again.
The question, let's just play out. This is all intentional. It's intentional release. And I'm not convinced of that, but
me neither, but let's take it.
Let's just say it's intentional release. I think the rate limiting step for them, it's the bug. It's the bug. So let's take Ebola. Ebola hasn't gone too far because it's so lethal. It's not like you could have Ebola, in every city in America, cooking away. It's just too lethal. Let's say Marburg virus, the same thing. I think it's probably too lethal. And then other ones, they just haven't taken off. Look at monkeypox. It quickly evolved into a sexually transmitted disease pattern. It just didn't have the juice that SARS-CoV-2 had. So I think those who are in this pandemic preparedness planning stage, they'd have to have the right organism again to try to, quote, pull this off again. If you look at the PrEP Act webpage, remember that the U.S. considers what we're talking about, Tommy, is uh, national security threats to the country, and that's where the PrEP Act comes in. The PrEP Act, which is the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act, it has a series of programs that declarations. So I'm just looking at the website, Tommy. They have one for smallpox, monkeypox, and other orthopox viruses, Marburg virus and disease, Ebola, nerve agents and insecticides, Zika virus, pandemic influenza, anthrax, and acute radiation syndrome, presumably from a nuclear holocaust, and then botulinum toxin. So that's what they have for their other declarations and current PrEP acts. And then, of course, they have one for SARS-CoV-2. So, if you were just to stay within the realm of what our country is considering, that's kind of what's on deck right now. The infectious ones are smallpox, Marburg, Ebola, Zika, flu, anthrax, and botulinum toxin. So that wouldn't be necessarily a botulinum outbreak. It would be some use of the toxin as a biological threat. But everything here in the PrEP Act is what our response would be, and the immunities granted to those using countermeasures against biological threats. Every one of these in the PrEP Act website is considered a biological threat to the United States, including SARS-CoV-2.
And they're just going to layer them one after the other and just keep battening down the hatches. I mean, you have to.
Well, it means they're ready, Tommy. It means they're ready. So recently, Marburg was in the mix here. Well, they put a notice of declaration under public readiness and emergency preparedness for Marburg. They put this on the HHS Federal Register December 9th, 2020. December 9th. Yeah. And this comes out of Health and Human Services. It's a declaration to provide liability immunity to individuals and entities who are considered covered persons against any claim or loss arising out of, relating to, or resulting from the manufacture, distribution, administration, or use of medical countermeasures, except for claims involving willful misconduct as defined under the PrEP Act. And then it goes on to talk about these. I mean, it's just, so there is a well-defined many pages of preparation, liability, how these countermeasures could be administered, what the target populations would be, geographic areas. It's all there under the PrEP Act. That's just for Marburg virus.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So PrEP Act website is a good place to look. And it's another good. We've talked about DARPA. You've covered DARPA, the research part of the military, but there's another unit called I believe it's DHARPA. Let me make sure I get this. This is really amazing. There is another website, and this has to deal with the
digital history advanced projects.
Yeah, it has to do with the information technology around DARPA. No, I take that wrong. I got the wrong acronym. It's actually called, I think it's called AHARPA. Let me see if I can get to it here. But I think anybody who's interested in doing just a little, just a little research on what the government is doing.
Health Advanced Research Projects. It's just HARPA.
HARPA. Thank you. Yeah. So here's what, meet HARPA, the bold way that the Biden administration can jumpstart health administration. But a lot of this, these federal agencies, no one's paying attention where the money is going. We haven't heard any discussion of a federal budget now in years. No one knows where this money is going, Tommy. Some of these agencies, the money is pouring in there, and on this information technology side of the defense research, it's all about social media and influencing people's accounts, and how the FBI was inside Twitter. We still don't know if FBI is involved with Twitter or not. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need the Twitter files does show there's direct liaisons. I mean, it'd be purely speculation. I don't have the receipt, so would have to be careful about that.
but did they ever let you back on, Tommy?
Twitter, they did a couple days ago, actually. I got back on. I
You're
kept
kidding
appealing.
me.
I kept appealing, and they finally got back to me.
Michael Yaden, who you've probably had on, he still is one of the few.
I've tried to get him on.
Tommy. What's your handle?
Let's see, I think Tommy's I think just TOMMYS_podcast. Let me check and make sure. Yeah, TOMMYS_podcast.
A tough handle, Tommy.
No, it's not Tommy's podcast.
Tom, I'm following you.
I know.
There, you got 1485 followers.
Yeah.
You're legit. Looks like you're retweeting something. Oh, you got my Australia back state of mortality.
Yeah.
Global predators. Oh, Peter Bragg. He looks good in glasses.
Yeah.
I tell you, well, there you go. You're back. I'm gonna promote you right now with a couple retweets.
Thank you, sir.
To my mega account, Tommy. People
flexing on Dr. McCullough's flexing on me. This is his power move. This is a humiliation trial.
I just retweeted you. I'm telling you right
sir.
now. Oh, there you are, Tommy. There you are in a tank top. I'll tell you, the girls are going to be, pouring into my account saying, "Do you know Tommy? Is he available?"
You just send him my way. You just send him my way.
Do you think he'd kind of go out with me? I've been married 35 years. Time happens to me all the time. These girls come out, and that's kind of
send them to me. Yeah, send them to me. I will handle these situations for you.
Let me tell you, Tommy, the Australian girls wanted to have pictures. I think at the Melbourne event, it almost got to be unruly. There was this pressing crowd, and the security started getting really uncomfortable. I was kind of pressed up against the wall. And got to some point, they said, "Listen, we got to pull them out of here." But in Sydney, we are much more organized. I think in Sydney, because there's like a receiving line, I must have taken about 400 pictures.
Good Lord. You bring
400 pictures. Yeah.
Bring me next time, and I will take this off your hands. I will.
Well, this is what I say. Listen, 400 pictures, Tommy, and just to be honest with you, these Australian girls are very attractive. And 400 pictures. And I asked the question, have you ever seen Fauci have women clamor for a picture? Or how about, how about Ja or Murthy or even this guy in Australia, Scarrett? You'd never see a receiving line of girls who want to take pictures with those guys.
Yeah. Well,
Tommy, listen, this is me and you. This is about what's hot. Medical freedom is hot.
Going against the status quo is everyone's always like that. Both sexes, just holding up a middle finger. Yeah.
You're so true. Remember Jimmy Dean, right? He was kind of the rebel. Girls were just like, gosh, I love this guy. He's he's a walking streak of sex. It's just these kind of bad boys, girls like bad boys. And I never thought, and guys do too. I never thought that I would be viewed that way. But anyhow, my wife's been very good about it. I've been married 35 years, very happily married. And many of the girls, they're married too. They actually want to meet my wife. But they want pictures because they want to be able to relate to somebody. They know this is an important inflection point in history. And all what I'm saying is, Tommy, the guys who are with the Empire, nobody wants a picture with Darth Vader or with Palatine. Any of these guys, forget it. Nobody does. They want pictures with Luke Skywalker, and, with Harrison Ford. That's who they want the pictures with. I've never heard anybody say I want a picture with Darth Vader. Nobody. They want pictures with the heroes. And in medical freedom, it is about who's going to be on the right side of history. We haven't said anything beyond the fact that people should have freedom of choice. We should have compassionate care. We should listen to each other's opinions. I was shocked at a Twitter feed that I just saw within the last hour. A very nice and well stated, well presented doctor in Florida, John Littell, who I know, he's about my age, maybe a bit younger, but he's the most appropriate and pleasant man you'd ever meet. He was just under police escort, booted out of a medical board meeting at Sarasota Memorial Hospital. I mean, the cops, these big cops, were ushering him out, and it was all on film. And you know why? Because he simply wanted to have a discussion about ivermectin in the treatment of COVID. And John Littell is ushered out of a board meeting by police force.
What the hell?
Yeah. Listen, the other side doesn't even want to hear a word. They do not even want to talk about this.
It really is. It is a psychosis. Like, it's absurd. It's not even just, I mean, I get the criminals at the top, they're making money and going for world domination. That's, but that's nothing new. Everything else is kind of like the underlings following along to a T. I mean, visceral reactions when you bring up maybe not getting there is something very, very strange going. I mean, it's military grade psyops, I guess, but man, like, it's almost unhuman. It's weird. It's uncanny.
I mean, who would, you're having a meeting, who wouldn't have a discussion regarding a new form of chemotherapy or an approach? And you can't talk about it forever. You say, listen, we'll have 15 minutes on this or 10 minutes on this. And what I on my retweet, I said, who would have guessed that at a medical board meeting, we can't just have a discussion regarding a treatment in a novel coronavirus pandemic. It's a novel coronavirus. Nobody knows exactly what works and what doesn't work. And you know what I mean? It's this idea of the dismissiveness on this. And under no circumstances would any board ever entertain a discussion on vaccine safety.
I feel like whatever it is they're going for, I feel like they're accelerating their grasp for it. Do you get that feeling? Or is that just me? It feels like it's getting sloppier and more dangerous.
Are you saying at desperate times for desperate men?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, they've normally been very clean, very slow boiling the frog. They've been good at for decades, and they're kind of. It's like when you got 5 minutes left and you're in an exam and you're writing the long essay and you're just going and trying to get in all the keywords the professor knows you studied, and you just start naming it, not even complete sentences, your hand hurts. It kind of feels like they're doing that just with just the entire unrestricted warfare aspect of it. And part of me is like, that's not good because what they're doing is dangerous. I mean, I don't think what's going on with our infrastructure. I don't think the war, the infrastructure, COVID, the Chinese. I think these things are all kind of related to the same beast, and they're moving faster and faster. And that either means that they're so close to victory that they're just pulling off all the safeties because it doesn't matter, or it means they didn't war game accurately the resistance or negative response people have had, and they're going for broke now. They've already committed the crime. They've already broken down the vault door. They didn't think the cops would respond this quickly, and it's like fingerprints, the cameras, like we've already like killed us. Like, we're going to jail for life. It's like grab the money bags and run. And they're going for broke now, and that's dangerous. But it could also be optimistic. It could mean that they're not going to get away with it, and we'll never know. You never know until it's happened. But we might be looking back in a month and be like, who would have guessed that by March it all would have fallen apart? Or it might be in 3 years. We say, yeah, 2024 is the year of the good guys. We don't know. I have no idea. Do you get that? And I know we're completely out of the realm of medical talk, but
No, maybe there's some ways to understand it. What about resignations? What do you think
Yeah.
about
YouTube
retirement?
CEO.
Anthony Fauci, Francis Collins, even this guy John Skerritt in Australia announces that he's retiring now. All these guys are like my age. Fauci's older, but maybe retirements is a signal. What are these guys? What are they thinking? We know that Stephen Hahn, former FDA commissioner, he goes to the venture capital firm for Moderna. The commissioner before him, Scott Gottlieb, goes on the board of Pfizer. Now, by the way, since Scott Gottlieb was slammed for his conflict of interest intervention at Twitter, he was trying to use his influence at Twitter to actually dumb down messaging on natural immunity. He wanted to actually reduce Twitter message on natural immunity. Why? So people would be more scared and take more Pfizer vaccines. Since this was exposed in the Twitter files, boy, Gottlieb has really fallen from favor. They said, for 2 months, you haven't seen this guy anywhere. So these guys do fall. They do fall. We still got Walensky out there, Jha, Murthy. What will happen? There's rumors. Well, I think the next chapter is going to be who takes Fauci's position. And who's been discussed? Yes, the bow tie man, Peter Hotez. Peter Hotez from Baylor College of Medicine, Houston.
Is that better?
Tommy, take a look at this feed. He gives lectures, and the name of his lectures deals with anti-vaxxers and anti-science. So anybody who says anything about a vaccine is an anti-vaxxer, and that's anti-science. And he has books written on that. He has books that, in a sense, are already kind of aligning anything in the vaccine world as being science, and then anything that, in a sense, anything that doesn't agree with him, he calls it anti-science. So yeah, his website here is Combating Anti-Science. And these are the headlines. Will anti-vaccine activism in the U.S. reverse global goals? Anti-science kills. It just keeps going and going. That's basically what he's saying. Here's one. Anti-vaccine activism, which I actually call anti-science aggression, has now become a major killing force globally. Peter Hotez, professor and dean, Baylor College of Medicine, tropical medicine, on the devastating impact of misinformation. So he's someone who has already said he's not going to have a conversation about this. In his mind, there would be no way the vaccines could ever be unsafe. In his mind, they must be safe, and this must be science, and that is how the world is ordered. And in his view, there can be no discussion.
Which is not science. That is science, right? Is peer review.
We always discuss. That's like somebody saying that cholesterol is this, and there will be no discussion.
And it's over.
Take your cholesterol pill, and if you don't, you're an anti-cholesterol, anti-science person, and you're killing other people. Can you imagine taking such a stance like that?
And then
he's linked them all: anti-vax, anti-science, killing. He's linked them all. And then his important propaganda tool is the use of the word misinformation.
Yes, of course. And then you have the Trudeau approach, where you say anti-vax, anti-science, and then just for good measure, you throw in racist misogynists. Do you remember his tweet?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just throw that in. I remember his agitated video where he says, "I'm not going to have an unvaccinated Canadian sit next to somebody who's taking a vaccine on an airplane." And he was almost as if he was going to lose his marbles right there. And
I guess my question with, again, at the very top, they're not stupid. They know what they're doing. They know it's all BS. They know it's a money and power grab. They don't care. They're psychopaths. But the lesser guys, like the bow tie man, uh, they're not stupid. You don't get that position by being stupid. Like academically, you got to be intelligent. So what is just psychosis? Is it cognitive dissonance? Like if he
Okay.
understands that this is wrong, then does his whole worldview fall apart and he just takes his clothes off and goes running into the woods? Like what is this? It's psychosis.
Well, yeah. So sure, he's a smart academic person. He has kind of a slightly lesser resume than mine. You know, he doesn't have as many publications that I do, but it is substantial what he has. Um, you could look at it this way: if he had tremendous insecurities regarding his whole research agenda, and he absolutely positively positioned himself to be unassailable, that being anti-vaccine is anti-science and is that means the converse, pro-vaccine, pro-science, that he's unassailable. He's used this as a positioning to make himself unassailable, meaning he can never be wrong. He can never be wrong. Remember when Fauci said, if you're attacking me, you're attacking science.
You're attacking
These
me.
people are at the point where they they can't be wrong. Hotez is an interesting case study because he's got a personal family issue, and it comes out in one of his books. One of Hotez's books is about his daughter, and the title of his book, it came out in 2018. Vaccines did not cause Rachel's autism. My journey as a vaccine scientist, pediatrician, and autism dad.
Hmm. So yeah, I mean that's a deeply emotional tie, right?
Well, I mean, you can think of it here. You know, the psychiatrists would call that when you actually kind of construct an entire reality to deal with something that you really think is um, uh, uh, that you think has happened. That's called projection. Okay, so projection by definition is the process of displacing one's feelings onto a different person, animal, or object. It's commonly used as a defense mechanism. And many times uh, here's an example that's used in a definition. For example, if someone continuously bullies and ridicules a peer about his insecurities, the bully may be projecting his own struggle with his own self-esteem onto the other person. So what Hotez could be doing here is he could actually be projecting his own insecurity or potentially his own guilt. So, you know, the MMR vaccine, it's a controversial topic, at least given very closely together to childhood, has been proposed to be a link to autism or autism spectral disorder. And so because he has a child with autism and because he is a vaccine scientist, invariably his children receive the vaccines. This girl received the vaccines. And now interpreting all this, the psychologist would say, wait a minute, he actually in the deep down in his brainstem thinks the vaccines actually, or there's a question, could the vaccines have caused his child autism and created this terrible situation for this human being? And could that be his responsibility? And so he's projecting out of this by saying, no, this did not cause my child's outcome. I'm a vaccine scientist, pediatrician, and autism dad. And vaccine science is unassailable. And anybody who goes against that is anti-vaccine and anti-science. So, I mean, what an interesting case of psychology here.
No, it's very sad. I mean, I look at I've examined myself a lot, and I think a huge reason, not only will I do see this as like a threat, does seem to be a global technocratic coup for domination over the world and against human liberties. But I also, I mean, Yeah, you know, I've told you a million times. I lost a sibling to suicide in 2014, and I always wonder like what more could I have done? And I often think, is my like obsessive work ethic with this podcast, specifically talking about things that aren't supposed to be talked about, is that like my own projection of I want to do all the right things and cross all the T's and dot all the I's. So if anything bad happens in the future, I can say, no, I did everything I could. I interviewed Dr. Mocha. I
Mm.
don't even know. So, you know, when you word it like that, it makes me less angry at the guy, and I kind of want to give him a hug.
Wow.
But
Wow, tremendous insights. You're right. How much of what we do is it in some way compensatory for other things in
past
our
traumas, yeah, it's
past trauma?
like I want to give him a hug, but then there's like there's also like a deviation of like I feel bad for him, but if his projection is resulting in untold numbers of people getting these shots that lead to death and myocarditis and Guillain-Barré, well, now your projections are hurting people. And although I still feel for him, it's like that has to stop, right? It's
It's true.
oof.
You know, there's a recent Kaiser Family Foundation survey about this. And the COVID-19 vaccine debacle, and I just characterize it as a debacle, has led to tremendous vaccine hesitancy. And among parents now, a substantial number of parents are stating that they don't plan on any more vaccines with their kids at all. None. They're done with vaccines. It could be even a third. You know, the quote anti-vaxxers, the parents that believed in natural methods, the Amish. You know, there are certain people, they just don't take vaccines. That was always about 2.5% of the population, but now potentially expanding to a third. And I think it's because the COVID-19 vaccines have backfired.
Absolutely. And I've been saying that with you since we've been doing podcasts, is that there will be more damage than just physical damage. The respect and authority and deference to the individuals with the white coat, which has been built up over decades and centuries, is now it's like a kid burning through like a trust fund. Like they are burning through all the respect that has been built up by good doctors. They're they're burning through that bank account of credit, of respect, and it's going to go inverse. You're going to have people who won't take vaccines that probably are safe, or they might not. I'm not going to the doctor at all. Now you're missing like an actual like a tumor or something. So there are people who are going to throw out all medical diagnosis, just baby with the bathwater.
You know, Tommy, I'm seeing that in my area. You know, one of the most important drugs I prescribe are called statins, Lipitor, Zocor, Crestor,
Mm-hmm.
others. And, there have been hundreds and hundreds of randomized trials, well studied, clearly reduced risks of heart attack, stroke, cardiovascular death, clearly. And now there's a complete backlash. I've had some of these kind of more natural oriented patients. These statins are toxic. Why do you support them? Oh, statins are terrible. They're just like vaccines. And just, I'm like, what? And so there's a huge backlash now against statins, and we can have backlashes against cancer chemotherapy and blood pressure lowering and some of our advances right now. I can see it brewing right now. You go out there and ask, go to one of these health freedom events and ask any one of these mothers about statins, and all they have is bad things to say. And there are some side effects with statins. None of them are permanent, and we understand them well. You know, all drugs have side effects. But I've seen a huge pushback since this quote anti-vax movement against statins, for instance. I've actually seen it. I've had people come to my office and say, "Doctor, I want you to be my doctor, but I don't want to take any pills, none." It's like, I said, wait a minute, I'm a medicine doctor. That's what I do. I prescribe pills. It's like, why come to me? You know what I mean? Just so you can have your heart attack on my watch, or
Yeah,
what? So I think we're gonna see a lot of that. But we've covered a lot of interesting sociology and psychology today. I just want to put a little teaser in for my podcast coming up this week on America Out Loud Talk Radio. I interviewed an attorney, Lucia Sinatra. Let me tell you, that's a great name.
That's an
Lucia
awesome name.
Sinatra. Isn't that?
It's
I mean,
great.
that's as spicy as any tomato sauce you're going to have on your pasta, Tommy. And let me tell you what, she's just as spicy in real life. I had a chance to meet her in the Dallas Arboretum. She's started a not-for-profit company called No College Mandates. And she's the most knowledgeable person on college mandates. And we had a wonderful discussion. And I just think it's so notable that my mother, who's in senior living, we just talked to her about an hour ago, there's no vaccine mandates in the nursing homes. There's no vaccine campaigns, and yet in colleges where the risks are negligible, the kids just want to go to school and finish. They're under vaccine mandates. One of my alma maters, University of Michigan, just announced another vaccine booster mandate. Why? If the nursing homes aren't having booster mandates, why in the world would University of Michigan have it for 18-year-old kids to 24-year-old kids? And some of these universities, Tommy, they have the mandates for the students, but not for the faculty. The faculty are older. Some of them are very old. So the students get to endure the safety hazards of the vaccines, and the faculty skate away, scot-free.
What the hell?
Yeah. You got to talk to her. I mean, these are some of the reason why we do podcasts. The reason why we're doing podcasts, Tommy, is because we're having interesting conversations, which you never have in the media. You just don't, you just never learn. You just don't, you would never know.
Well, that is kind of the silver lining to the last couple of years, is just unfortunately people throwing out like all medical care, throwing out the baby with the bathwater. That's no good. But you have people just taking the media, like mainstream media, and they've just been hemorrhaging every month for the past like 50 months. People are just like, it's all BS. None of that's true. More and more people, and not just young people. You have older people just completely backing out, going into alternate. And again, there's a symbolic poeticism to it of I mean, it is like variance. You're using a leaky vaccine and you're driving variance. You're using a leaky censorship machine, and you're just creating Rumble and BitChute and Odyssey and Brighteon and whatever. And ultimately, you're making the global population more resilient to the virus of globalism. And that's kind of happening.
That's a very interesting observation. You're right. So independent media is a form of kind of resistance to globalism, because people can exchange ideas. And certainly under totalitarian, authoritarian approaches, one of the key things is to stomp out any interchange of ideas. Actually, throw Dr. John Littell out of the board meeting. So you can be no discussion over therapeutics for COVID. That's totalitarianism.
Yeah.
So, Tommy, listen, we're going to have to leave it here. It's been a great conversation. Sir. I'm so glad I'm the leader on your podcast. I got to keep my number one position. And you can hear my dog barking in the background. It means it's time to get going. But anyhow, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yes, sir. Guys, go into the description. Follow him on Twitter, on Getter, on Gab. Find his Substack, his book, The Courage to Face COVID-19 with co-author John Leake, on Audible. You can grab that as well in the description. As always, thank you, sir. And also go check out his podcast. I love you, Dr. McCullough. Take care, brother.
Follow Tommy on Twitter now.
Follow Tommy on Twitter. Yeah, ladies, I am Dr. McCullough surrogate. It's fine. I have written permission. I am Dr. McCullough. You can call me Dr. McCullough, whatever you want. I'll get a white coat. Dr. McCullough, I love you. Thank you so much.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, brother.